Oh. Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome to the Wobble Enjoy Sports channel. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. The final round regular season for the NRLW 2023, probably arguably the most successful season to date. And unfortunately, this will be the last in-season North Queensland Cowboys content that I'll be providing. So let's go out with a friggin' bang. Who we got this weekend? Hmm. Round 9 of the 2023 NRLW season starts on Thursday night football at 7:45 in the evening. The West Tigers versus the Newcastle Knights for the first time ever. The Tigers on Sportsbet are $4 outsiders. The Newcastle Knights are $1.25 favourites. And it's going to be interesting to see whether or not a couple of these top teams are going to rest players. I don't think they will be because, it's only 9 rounds in. You want to keep on the momentum. They're hungry for more footy, god damn it. But uh, it'll be interesting to see if the likes of the Knights and Roosters do rest players. On the West Tigers, though, they put in one of the best efforts I've ever seen. I think we've all ever seen in an NRLW game. They lost, sure, but they won plenty of respect, plenty of pundits as well. That is the standard for the West Tigers as so far as effort goes. That is a wonderful platform to work off from for the West Tigers. Unbelievable performance, and they should be congratulated. And the Newcastle Knights, I seem to accidentally be uh, underestimating them at every corner. I know Jessica Surgis on Team List Tuesday was excluded, and I still tipped the Roosters to beat the Newcastle Knights in the top of the table clash this past weekend. And then Millie Boyle was a late scratching, and then the Newcastle Knights were just licking their lips, rubbing their paws together, and went, "You friggin' beauty." And they smashed the Sydney Roosters, and they are now the clear cut favourites to win the Premiership. I think that just about sews up the minor Premiership, unless if a certain team can cause an absolute boil over this weekend. But let's go into the team list because I think this will be a really nice competitive contest. Starting with the West Tigers, now we've got BVW in at fullback, Whitfield and Pollard are the wingers, Horn and Tafuga are the centres, Curtin and Talatena are the halves pairing, Varkey, Curtin and Pio, that's Sophie Curtin, they are the front row, and then the back row is Apps, Tavega and Nevada George in at lock. Then the interchange is Gobran, Patu, Jessica Kennedy, and some Sima Noir, and then into the Newcastle Knights. Tamika Upton, she's still there. Gallagher, Strange, the wingers. Parker, Roach, the centres. Georgia Roach and Jesse Southwell are the halves pairing. This is a full strength Newcastle Knights side. No one's getting rested by the looks of things. Predabon, Higgins, Johnston, Albert Jones, Clydesdale, Hannah Southwell, interchange, Nia Maynard, Jacinta Carter, Romanak, and Tiana Davison round out the bench. Wow, that is full strength Newcastle Knights side. How can you tip against the Newcastle Knights? With all due respect to the West Tigers, but yeah, they're a plucky side. The West Tigers when they want to be they're a plucky side. So uh, I'll say, yeah, okay, I'll say the Newcastle Knights win 13 plus, but watch out for this in the first half, eh? Shifting into Super Saturday, there are 2 games, and it is a double header from Netstrata Jubilee Stadium. The first game kicks off at 6 p.m. on Saturday night. The Sydney Roosters versus the North Queensland Cowboys for the first time ever in the NRLW. On Sportsbet, the Roosters are $1.10, whereas the North Queensland Cowboys are $7 outsiders. Oh boy. Going into the team list now for the Sydney Roosters. Baxter in at fullback. Parker and Bentley are the wingers. Frazard and Kelly are the centres. Aiken and Kelleher are still there in the halves. Millie Boyle returns. She could have had another week off. That would have been lovely. Keely Davis is the hooker. Fought to Mawala, the other front rower. Poole, Koenig, Joseph round out the back row. Then on the interchange, Scott, Hamilton, Hill Moana, and Jolie Morris. Now, going into the Cowboys for the last time this season, Francesca Goldthorpe in at fullback, Nate Corey and Crystal Blackwell on the wings, Jasmine Peters and Shelley Long the centres, Tillett and Dibb the halves pairing, Harden, Mantleman and Natapuna are the front rowers, Breechester, Tiana Rafstrand Smith, and Lily Pocock is starting now. She made her debut 2 weeks ago, and she's only just turned 18, I'm pretty sure, or just on 19. And now she's starting with jersey 12 on her friggin' back. And that's because China Palata, unfortunately, is out with, I think, a broken hand. I think that's why she's out. The interchange reads Jataya Faifua, Sarah Koroy, Maya Middleton, and Jessica Reeves in jersey number 17. Alrighty. North Queensland Cowboys. I was there in person to see them take on the Canberra Raiders down at Seabar Super Stadium this past weekend, and ah, it was just a game where nothing went right for them. They had a couple of bounces of the ball that landed in their lap, but then the last line of defence was there in Apia Nichols for the Canberra Raiders. Uh, when they turn it on, they look really dangerous, the North Queensland Cowboys, and I really want to I think I've already given this lady a shout out this year, but I really want to give a shout out to Crystal Blackwell, who's doing her damnedest as an 18-year-old herself, I'm pretty certain, a young rookie in any event, uh, grew up playing in the halves, and for the past fortnight or 3 weeks now, thereabouts, she's been playing as a winger and she's going okay. She's going okay, man. She's dangerous when she has a good pass thrown to her, and just things seem to happen around this girl, man. I'm really hoping that we can lock her up for a couple more seasons, and really give her an opportunity to bloody develop and blossom. I think there's just something really cool about this young Crystal Blackwell. Uh, Nakore, one of the wingers for the North Queensland Cowboys, she's worked her ass off all season long, and she did it again last weekend, but she came up with about three or so errors. But she still ended up being one of those players for the Cowboys on a losing side that was probably one of the best three for the Cowboys that day. She just worked her ass off, man. Lily Peacock is making an impact off of the bench for sure. Me and a couple of other Twitter Cowboys fans have been really anticipating this Peacock this year, or possibly the next. We didn't know when she was going to debut. She has, and she's just killing it, man. And yeah, she's probably starting this weekend out of necessity because China Pilates unfortunately done her hand or something to that nature. So it's kind of been fast tracked. But this Lily Peacock is one tough goer. And also Jessica Reeves as well. I think she's absolutely locked in her spot, even though she probably is already signed up to next year already off the top of the dome. She's absolutely locked up a starting 1 to 17 spot in the Cowboys next season as well. I think she's been really nice for us, definitely. I'm looking at the reserves now, and there's just a couple of players I guess I'm disappointed that I haven't seen crack on for the rest of the year, or at some point throughout this season. Like a Sarika Muka, who was one of the best Cowboys or Gold Stars players last season. And then you've got S.A. Banu that we only saw once or twice this year. So I'm really hoping we see more of them. But look, as it stands, Cowboys, they do their best work when they're on the road. I know they lost last weekend, but they do their best work on the road. Just go absolutely insane this weekend, girls. You've done yourselves, you've done the Cowboys proud this year. You've all worked your fucking asses off. Can't thank yous enough. You've been terrific to watch. Go out with an absolute bang this weekend, girls. Cowboys 13 plus. And the second game of the doubleheader from Netstrata Jubilee Stadium is the Dragons versus the Broncos. On Sportsbet, the Dragons are $3.25. The Broncos are $1.35. This will be the seventh meeting between the Dragons and the Broncos, and it is all the Brisbane Broncos, 5 wins to 1 for the Dragons. And the Dragons only got their first ever win against the Broncos last year. Unfortunately, the Dragon season came to an end last weekend officially against the Sharks. Cronulla got the dub in the first ever derby against them. Hard-hitting contest it was too. It's a real hard-hitting contest. Going into the team list now, got Berry at fullback, Vela and Topo are the wingers. The centres are Lendl and Costa. Nathan Wong and McGregor are the halves pairing. Tiakaranga, Katoa, Target, Murdoch are the front rowers. Mohali, Williamson, and Jamie Lee Bright are the back rowers. Hopkins, Basham, Carlisle, and Wetherell are the interchange. I'm pretty sure Charlotte Basham, is a debutante, so well done to her. Basham, that's a fantastic last name. I can't stop saying it, and I can't stop looking at it. Then you've got the Brisbane Broncos side now. Haley Maddock at fullback, Robinson, Hufanga, Shizuoka, Werner, Broughton returns, and Brigginshaw. Then the forward pack is Lafayette, Brill, Clark, Gray, Teitzel, Denman. Gould, Fokafini, Leonard Doozy, and Lauren Dam round out the interchange just quietly. Uh, I thought Leonard Doozy could have been suspended for that high shot she did. I think it was on. Oh, who was it on? It was on a West Tigers play. I'm sorry, the name escapes me, but gee whiz, she absolutely coat hanged some poor old West Tigers player last weekend. Uh, this is yeah, I give the Dragons a massive sniff there. Their position on the ladder, I know there's only a place for for 4 teams to get into the top 4. This Dragons side, much like the West Tigers side, worked their asses off this year. And the Broncos, I don't think they have the gear in them to match it with the Roosters. I don't think they have the gear in them or two to match it with the Newcastle Knights. I do think that they are very much a tier below. I know they gave the Knights some headaches earlier this season, but come finals, I don't think they're going to match it with them. Um, yeah, this Dragons side with nothing to play for but pride, and that can be a very powerful thing, will give this team headaches, and this Broncos side don't want to go into finals with another injury under their belt, sort of thing. So they may play within themselves as well, much like a couple of other sides will potentially will do this weekend. I'm still going to tip the Brisbane Broncos, but I'm going to say 1-12. And I'm not confident about it either, actually. I really do give this Dragons side a bit of a sniff. Moving into Sunday football, and we have a doubleheader emanating from GIO Stadium. The first game of the doubleheader starts at 1 p.m. on Sunday, and on Sportsbet, the Eels are $4.50, technically the home side. They take on the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, who are $1.20. This is the first ever meeting between the Eels and the Sharks, going straight into the team list now. Church's fullback, Faye and Hunter the wingers, Tui and Tohi Hiku are the centres. Berryman, Duff, and Pearson are the halves pairings. O'Neill, Cherrington, Amiatu, Murphy, Kennedy Cherrington, Todd Hunter, Kapua, Ken Ardellis, and Fonua. They are the Parramatta Eels. And the Cronulla Sharks, Taylor, Ravix, Penatani, Biddle, Staples, Tonagato, and Preston are the back line. Johnston, Dodd, Dimmick, Holmes, Foliaki, and Wheeler are the forward pack. And the interchange, Nato, Katoka, Butler, Anderson, and Saunders are the interchange bench. Yeah, probably the biggest disappointments for 2023 in the NRLW are the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, and they've been so much better with Jada Taylor at fullback. And you probably reckon if this side can stick together and Jada Taylor can have herself an uninterrupted campaign in 2024, the Sharks will be there in finals footy, you would imagine. I think these ladies will finish on a huge high. I think this will be a 13 plus points victory for the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. The Eels, they've been plucky at times, man, but unfortunately, that wraps up the wooden spoon for them. Unless if the Cowboys lose by about 60 points and the Eels win this game, I do think that that is all she wrote and that they've got the wooden spoon. Oh, God, if that comes to bite me, I'm so sorry, North Queensland Cowboys girls. Now, for the final game of round 9, for the final game of the home and away regular season for the NRLW, this is easily the game of the round. This will have all the eyes of the NRLW universe watching. The Raiders host the Gold Coast Titans from 3:15 p.m. at GIO Stadium, and it is $1.90 each way between the Raiders and the Titans. This is the first ever meeting between the two sides in the NRLW, and coming into this game, the Titans, they sit in third position. The Canberra Raiders sit outside of the top four in fifth position. Let's talk about the mechanics now. I didn't talk about it during the Dragons and Broncos, but I'm going to start talking a little bit about them here and now. So, right now, it's the Titans, the Broncos, and the Raiders outside of the top four in fifth position. If the Raiders win, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're in. One or two things has to happen here for the Raiders to make the top four. If the Dragons defeat the Brisbane Broncos on Saturday, and the Raiders win on Sunday, the Raiders are in, the Broncos are out. If the Raiders defeat the Gold Coast Titans to the tune of about 14, no, not 14, it's going to be about 25, 26 points they need to win by. They then overtake the Gold Coast Titans, and it will then come down to whether or not the Broncos win on Saturday night. So the Titans, the Broncos, and the Raiders, they are all vying for the top four spot, and it's coming down to the final game of the regular season to decide the top four. The Canberra Raiders girls will be absolutely hoping, cheering the Dragons girls on. Absolutely, the Raiders will be, and so too will the Gold Coast Titans, just quietly as well, because that would just about assure them, cement their top four spot this season. What a story it would be if the Canberra Raiders girls got in their inaugural season, but they got to take one or two parts. If the Broncos win, they got to defeat the Gold Coast Titans by 25 points, and that is the much less desired path to take. But if the Dragons spring an upset, and I think the Dragons are pretty bloody capable of doing so, the Raiders just simply have to win, and it would be the Broncos out. And if the Raiders win, the Titans still remain inside the top four. So it's a huge game, the Dragons Broncos. It's an even bigger game between the Raiders and the Titans. Now let's go into the team list news now for the Canberra Raiders and the Gold Coast Titans as I find my way back here. So in at fullback is Appy Nichols, and going into the wings now for the Canberra Raiders are Madison Bartlett and Shakaya Tungai. Robbins, Retty, and Wiki are the centres. Temera and Quinlan are the halves pairing. Kelly Signs, Temera, and Hollyman are the forward pack, and the front rowers. Soliola, Smith, and Samaima Taufa are the back row, and then Emma Barnes, Kemp, Matua, and Ranke are the interchange. Going into the Gold Coast Titans, Avania Palete is the fullback. Brown, Mino Sinapati are the wingers. Chapman and Williams Guthrie are the centres. Kiriaratu, who was my rookie of the year, and Lauren Dam are the halves pairing. Then we've got Shannon Marto, Breely Nati, and Elliston in the front row. Canfield, Bent, and Hale, Georgia Hale, are the back row. And then the interchange reads Sienna Lofipo, Steph Hancock, Jorgensen, and Danny Perese, and Talia Fuimeono and Emily Bass are floating around there on the reserves list. So the Gold Coast Titans are unchanged after their big win against the Eels last weekend. Meanwhile, there was an injury to come out of that game against the Cowboys last weekend. That was Holly Mae Dodd, unfortunately, copped a knee injury. So I don't know if she'll be returning this year at all. I don't think she would be, unfortunately. It did look pretty nasty. What a blockbuster. This is going to be an amazing game of footy, man. I am going to tip the Canberra Raiders. I just think they'll be a bit more physical. Uh, I think they can be a bit more physical than the Gold Coast Titans, taking absolutely nothing away from the efforts of Shannon Marto, Jess Elliston, Steph Hancock this season, who have just about been the best props in the NRLW. Just about. I'm going to tip the Canberra Raiders here. Whether or not they can get a win by 26 plus points, I don't think they can do that. So I think they're really, really hoping that the Dragons defeat the Broncos on Saturday. But in any event, this is going to be a cracking game. $1.90 each way. I'm tipping the Canberra Raiders to win this game 1-12. Yo, that's it for me, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. That's it for the home and away season for the NRLW, and it's pure finals football chat next weekend. Watch out for a special video next weekend, by the way, leading into the preliminary finals. Talk to you guys later. Hope your team wins this weekend, except for the Sydney Roosters. Adios.